Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Out of the Park 23 with the Minnesota Twins and the first of our off-season episodes. So the general plan here is going to be going through the team as it currently stands. We are at free agency was just filed, so we're going to kind of talk about what we've done so far, which isn't a ton, and kind of what I'm looking at moving forward for the rest of the off-season. So starting off with the lineup, we still have Hunt and Jeffers as our two catchers. The big problem here is that they're fairly similar players, um, and that means that they're both right-handed hitting catchers. It means that it's hard to justify really keeping both of them around. I mean, obviously Hunt was quite a bit better than Jeffers last year, but we'll kind of keep them both around, and we'll sort of see this year what happens. If Hunt continues to outplay him, then we'll probably look to move Jeffers during the regular season at some point. Though we don't really have a great organizational option at catcher. Um, so that's because, I mean, even here, it's kind of that same thing of the right handed hitting power bat catcher. Um, there's not a great internal option. So that kind of creates the other part of the problem with Jeffers. At first base, Jose Miranda um, is our guy. Was very good last year. Got Rookie of the Year votes down ballot. You will notice Trey Mancini is not here. We did end up declining his option. I think his role can be fulfilled pretty much by Hudson Potts, who is our call-up and is now the number 79 prospect in baseball and has been somebody that a lot of teams have been very interested in doing trades. There was a trade I was looking at. It was not going to happen, but the three people they were asking for were Buxton, Duran, and Potts. So he's very highly valued. Is I don't think quite as good. Well, they're pretty similar to Miranda defensively. Um, but the kind of the plan is to make sure they're both in the lineup against lefties and sort of alternate them a little bit against right-handed pitching, with Arise being my DH against righties. So I did decide to keep him around at 2.5 million. Um, yeah, because I still believe that this bat is better than an 83 WRC plus, 80 OPS plus. Um, but if he struggles again this year, I have left-handed bat options in the minors to replace him for sure. And I don't think moving him would be too difficult even with that, but I don't want to do that. But if he struggles again, I have the bats to replace it, I think. Polanco, obviously coming off of a very good year, still our mainstay second baseman. Urshela, again, same thing, very good last year. I did decide again. He wanted a multi-year contract, but instead of doing that, I just offered him basically a $10 million deal to avoid arbitration. But I don't see myself wanting to continue to stay with Urshela moving forward. I don't see. I mean, I guess if he has a year like this again, then maybe. But I'm not really bought into the fact that he's a 4.5 WAR player. I have some options that aren't quite ready yet, but we have both Gianni Cavoco and Cam Collier, our first round draft pick, who was very good in rookie ball last year and just turned 18. As somebody who could potentially be 2 years out. Cavoco is slightly ahead, but not much. So it could end up being something where we have a 1 year stopgap. We maybe play Royce Lewis there, and you'll notice that he is called up. And sort of the plan for him is to basically have him be a super utility guy. We're kind of looking at some of this against lefties. I have him as my Buxton backup in center field, where we can take advantage of kind of the fact that we used him there in the minors. I'll probably have him be my everyday center fielder during spring training to try to get that up to that 55 mark. and have him kind of play my backup everywhere. And he should be playing 4 to 5 times a week, and hopefully that's enough to kind of make sure that he is getting plenty of at bats. Because I'm kind of hoping that the struggles last year were based on him not wanting to be in the minors. So we'll kind of see what happens there. As far as outfield, it's kind of the same as last year. Kirilloff, Buxton, Kepler are my starters. Isbell becomes my fourth guy. He is playing fairly frequently. I'm trying to be more aggressive this year in giving Buxton days off, where I don't want him to play as many games. I have him playing more games than the Twins have him playing in real life, but I'm hopeful that if by having him play not every day, he's less likely to get injured. I mean, he obviously still is fragile. There's still concerns there, but I'm hopeful that by doing this, it'll let him be more open and available. As far as minor league hitters goes, some of the kind of the people we're looking at is Godoy is kind of our left-handed hitting catcher, where he could potentially be the guy that we call up if we do move one of our catchers, but I don't love that option. Wallner, we're moving to play first base in the minors this year at AAA to try to get that first base rating up before we potentially call him up. This is one of the left-handed bats that I was talking about for if Arise struggles. The other one being Trevor Larnach, who didn't really hit last year, which has me fairly concerned because it doesn't seem like it's a role on team angry of wanting to be in the majors. It's a little concerning to me, to the point where I think in my head Wallner's probably ahead of him for a call up. Steer, I'm going to try to get a little bit of work in the outfield. The ratings just like he's hit well, but the ratings have me a little more concerned about his usefulness moving forward. Like this just isn't a super great profile of if the contact's lower, you'd like to see the power numbers be higher. I'm not sold on it. Martin kind of has some of those same concerns. WRC plus I think is always going to rate him higher than OPS plus because he's not going to slug very high. And you'll notice in AA his on-base percentage was higher than his slugging percentage. Slugging was just barely higher in AAA. But I think what we're going to try to do with him is try to get some more of those left and right field ratings up. To have Martin kind of, I think his long-term role is either trade bait or to be what I have Royce doing this year and being kind of the guy who's able to play all over. But he doesn't have the 65 range that Royce does, which makes him less useful as a backup center fielder or backup shortstop, as are evidenced by these ratings not even being 50s. So again, I have questions about what we're going to actually be able to do with him moving forward. Looking a little bit farther down in here, we talked about Kavoko briefly. Soretti hasn't really hit super well. This was one of our draft picks, who I kind of drafted more as a higher floor guy, but I definitely have concerns there. Rodriguez, I'm hoping we'll hit a little bit better at high A this year, but again, he's only 19, but he's starting to come along for sure. And then A-ball is where we've got some of our prospects that hit better in rookie ball. Collier obviously being one of the biggest ones. Torres as well hit pretty well in the minors. 6 home runs in 35 games is a pretty decent track record, where that could be roughly a 30 home run pace in the majors. So, which he's going to need because he's really first base only. Outfield is not an option for him. Noah Miller hit decently. The glove is again good, but not a shortstop. Whereas Andrade, I think, has a better shot at being a shortstop, but even here, he's probably more of a second baseman. But he's definitely a guy that I'm keeping a pretty close eye on because these ratings are starting to come up a little bit. Um, yeah. And then obviously we have kind of some of our stud Dominicans that we're going to leave, I think, in rookie ball for one more year. Because the ratings for single A just aren't really there yet. I like this contact to be a little bit higher. Ramos, Atrians are not great either. So I think we're going to leave them there for maybe one more year. But I think that if they don't end the year next year, at the very least in A-ball, I'd be pretty surprised. So that is the hitting side of where we're currently at. Pitching wise was kind of where we had a lot of our decisions to make with options. Dylan Bundy is gone. I decided to go with Gray over him. I did not end up offering Syndergaard a contract again because of the injuries. Obviously, we declined the Chris Archer team option. Was there any other options? I think that is all of them that we've talked about. Sonny Gray, we took that option. Trey Mancini, we declined. Bundy, we declined. Archer, we declined. Oh yes, this does remind me. The other thing was we got a pretty big payroll bump, allowing a team payroll around 180 after being about 150. That's pretty big. Injured list is now only 8 days, which I'm not super sure how much impact that will actually have. And I'm also not sure if that will be both for pitchers and position players. It'll be curious to see what happens there. And then, of course, the big contract that we do need to talk about is Carlos Correa. We were able to sign him to a long-term deal. 8 years, $300 million, front-loaded a little bit in contract. I think this is about what it's going to take to get him in real life. So I feel pretty good about this. Obviously, he's coming off of an incredible season and is going to be my shortstop for the next, 8 years. Hopefully wins another handful of gold gloves for me. Because the nice thing here is that I think even if these batting ratings come down, he should still at the very least be a stud shortstop for me for that entire time. Which is nice because now I'm not reliant on Royce, who has the little bit sketchier arm. I don't have to try to find a shortstop now. Correa just is the answer for the next 8 years. And I do think it's fairly likely that we will be playing the sim past Correa, so what we end up doing there will be interesting because I don't think we have anybody else currently. We did have to get a new first base coach. So what we ended up doing was we basically went and took a look at what roles we didn't have, what our old first base coach was doing, and we just grabbed a guy who was good at those two. So that is where we went there. And yeah, I believe that's kind of all the news stuff. So now we could go back into the pitching. So this is what the rotation is planning to look like. We made a trade for Dinelson Lamet. Pretty much right away in the offseason, you might have noticed in the news, the Padres came to me with a proposal that I hated. Let's see. It was originally Collier and Sanchez, who's my 4th round pick, and then Collier my 1st round pick, in exchange for Lamet, which I obviously was like, no, I'm not doing that. But I am interested in Lamet. So I traded away Chris Valamont, who struggled in high A at 25. I think that this is, there is a potential pitcher here, a major league pitcher, but I'm not, super sold on it. As well as Andrew Bechtold, who I just is, good defensively, I think, but this bat will just never play. for what you need at third base. So I was very okay giving that up for Lamet for the potential of this being a very good starting pitcher. Obviously, 35 stamina is a concern for a starter. It means you're probably not getting more than 5 innings out of him. But I think if you build up a good bullpen, and I had one last year, it can definitely work. I think as long as you don't push him too far. Otherwise, this is an incredible bullpen arm that I will be getting rid of because I don't know that I want to be paying a bullpen arm $5.5 million moving forward. Oh, interesting. So I don't know that we'll actually be able to keep it moving forward, that'll be interesting. Um, but yeah, so Gray, Maeda, Lamet, Paddock, and Ryan. Josh Winder is our kind of long relief sixth starter. Plus, obviously, there's also Belazovic in AAA. Grand Cano and Thielbar are all back as kind of our major pieces. Otherwise, there will be some arms that there will be some kind of movement within these guys during the year. Cotton had a very good year last year. I've been looking more into it. There's definitely a chance we trade him in the offseason. His 246 BABIP is just much lower than his historical numbers, and I think that might be why his numbers looked so good last year. So he's out of options. $1.5 million is reasonable for sure, but we might move him. Cody Whitley was a guy that was on waivers that we snagged because he was really good last year. So I figure we'll give him another shot. The BABIP numbers don't look too out of the ordinary. And I mean, really, all these numbers historically for him are just really good. So it seemed like it was worth a shot. Rozek is up because I think I want to have a lefty in my bullpen. And he's been nothing but good in the majors. 7 shutout innings in the regular season, pitched 3 scoreless as an opener, I believe, in that Houston game. And we didn't use him against Toronto, obviously, because of all the righties. And Stashek is a guy that my scout still believes in. OSA is even higher on him. But if he doesn't kind of turn some stuff around, then we might look to move him because the ratings mean we might be able to get something for him, even if he does struggle. And that's sort of, and then Alcala as well, I think will be probably the guy who will start in the minors of them because he does still have a couple of option years. Yeah, and then we've got a lot of options at AAA, especially for relievers. DeMarcus Evans will probably get some shots. Moran, I think I'm going to want to protect, be another lefty. Green is a good piece. Gore is kind of a maybe, but probably not. Cantorino, I think, is likely going to end up as a reliever. I don't know yet. There's also a couple of trades that I've been looking at a little bit that might bring in some relievers, some relief prospects. Bentley's another guy that my scout's high on that has struggled. Then yeah, just kind of there's some arms down here that are potentially interesting. As far as kind of some of the prospect stuff goes, Woods Richardson is probably next in line after Belazovic because he was very good at AA last year, had a good start AAA. Enriquez, I'm likely going to look to trade. I'm not super sure what we're going to do there. And there's kind of a lot of these AA arms are like pieces I'm willing to move to get a trade done. But there's definitely a lot of potentially interesting pieces. So like I'm not going to go out of my way to trade them, but they're all kind of options. Ajar is probably the one of my minor league arms I'm the most excited about because I mean this is MLB ratings and I mean the changeup looks elite already and all of these numbers look like this is a guy that wouldn't be terrible in the majors right now. Um, so I think this is a guy that could potentially be in our rotation as soon as next year, which would be really nice. Um, Down here we've got Osmond, who I like to see a little bit more for, but I mean this 7 walks per 9 is very concerning to me, because this I think this has to get to 40 for him to really pay off as a starting pitcher. And then here we've just kind of got a lot of guys. Weissman is potentially, I think this is another guy who could end the year as end this next year as high A. The stuff is starting to come along. The changeup, I believe, that has risen from where it was. Can I see individual pitches? I don't see it here, but um, I feel like I remember it being lower before. Povich has kind of been whatever. Yeah, Sanchez was the other guy that the Padres were asking for, that I think there's definitely a lot of potential here, even though he struggled this year. But that is sort of where we're looking right now. As far as what we're going to look to do in the off season, there's a couple of trades that I think are potentially interesting that I have lined up. Mostly it's, oh, that's interesting. This doesn't work. Oh, I might have to eat the Gordon deal. That's fine. That's basically nothing. Is I have some guys on my 40-man that I guess I don't have to trade, but are pieces that I don't think have a role moving forward, which means that it would be probably just good to have moved them to get something. Nick Gordon is one of those. My assistant GM is annoyingly high on him, and it makes every trade he's included on something that he's like, I hate this. And I'm like, well, I don't know what you expect me to do with Gordon. He didn't hit last year. He hasn't hit before. He's like fine defensively here, but I mean, this is basically Royce Lewis, but with less hitting upside, I think. So he's, yeah, arbitration eligible next year. I mean, I don't see any reason to keep him around. So this deal is there. This guy is, I don't think, much of anything. He's also just a corner outfielder in a system that has a lot of them. Pick up Heston Kjerstad, who I think would be an interesting piece. Unfortunately, is another left-handed hitting corner outfielder who could like maybe fake it in center, but I mean, high work ethic, the power's already there. Hit really well in A-ball last year. Is another piece that I think could be more of a like plus outfielder, because one of the bigger problems I have with some of my left-handed hitting bats here, like with Larnack and with Wallner, is they're not very good defensively, which means that it's more likely that I'd want to be DHing them almost. Whereas Kjerstad is much better defensively. Like these aren't great zone ratings. I mean, center field, like I'm not going to care about that. But I think that a guy like this in left or right, probably more of a left fielder with that arm, is more interesting to me. So this is a deal of some variation that I'm likely going to do, is to move Nick Gordon. And then the other piece that I've found out there where I'm not super sure exactly what deal I want to make, but this guy's pretty available, is this Indigo Diaz, which first off is just a good name, but he's not Rule 5 eligible yet. And all of these pieces are potentially plus tools, 2 elite pitches, 35 stamina. Like, I think this is a good, like I think this guy's a middle reliever right now in the majors. And could be somebody I could park at AAA, kind of just to be another piece there. So this is likely. I haven't decided kind of where I'm gonna go. I mean, there's. Oh, this is actually a lot different. This is maybe trades I should have made beforehand then. So this we'll kind of we'll see. We'll come back to this. Um, right, I might have hurt myself quite a bit as far as what's available there. If it doesn't work out, then that's fine. I've got lots of pieces there. But those are kind of a couple of the trades that I have been looking at. Free agency, because I went and got Correa. I still have a decent amount of money available to spend. I mean, I have $50 million, and I'll spend a decent chunk of that. But it means that I don't feel the need to make a huge splash. Offensively, I was definitely considering going after Xander Bogaerts to be my third baseman. If I ended up not being able to extend Correa. But I think at the point where I did that, I think it's hard to justify spending the money on him. Even though obviously this is a really good bat. He wants a pretty big contract. Which, I mean, not super surprising, right? As he's probably the best hitter out there. But I think that it's something that I'm still going to consider if the market for him doesn't end up playing out to the level in which I think it will. More likely here is going to be pitching and potentially looking to bring in one or two kind of bigger gun relievers because I'm not like the most confident in my arms past Duran. Even though both Thielbar and Cano were good last year, Thielbar's 36, Cano's in his second year, and the ratings aren't as incredible as the stats were for him, and the FIP says that there could be some regression coming. So I don't know exactly how much I can trust him, which means that we could look definitely at some of these higher end arms if the market doesn't play out for them. Especially somebody like an Edwin Diaz. I've seen in previous games not really people wanting to pay him that type of money. Henley Jansen is potentially an option as well. I'm definitely not opposed to going in on a good right-handed reliever. Matthew Boyd's listed as a closer. That's kind of funny. If the market for Syndergaard is something I'll be paying attention to as well because he was good for me last year, and with that big injury, there's definitely some question marks. But that is sort of what we are looking at right now. I think we're in a pretty good spot to the point where I don't think we have to make any massive splashes in free agency. Aaron Nola's coming off of a down year, which means that... What is he looking at for a contract? This, honestly, really isn't bad. For a guy that I think is pretty good. 21 wasn't great either. But I mean, all of the ratings from... I mean, my scout's slightly lower on him than OSA. But, man, I think that's... I think kind of about would probably be my high end on starting pitcher would be something like this. Because a lot of these other guys want a lot of money. So that might be something that I might take a look at. Anything probably lower than here, I'm probably not going to be looking at for relievers. Unless it's somebody like this that's potentially interesting. But yeah, I think we're in a pretty decent spot. There were a couple of international free agents. This guy's like sort of interesting. What does they say? I might do a scouting report request on you. Because the one thing that I really wish that this is something that I really want them to fix is sometimes these guys just get signed instantly. Where it's like, hey, they've entered the market. They've already been signed. The more annoying one to me was where was the guy Seattle signed? Yeah, like this is a guy I would have been interested in. Right-handed hitting corner outfielder, but the game's just like nope. Seattle's got him as soon as he shows up. So that's a little frustrating, but is what it is. Um, this is a guy that I'll take a look at. Other than that, Ricky Santana, I guess I might have him request a scouting report here as well. Because this is like potentially interesting, but not something I'm like super concerned about. This contact I think is just too low to be really good. But yeah, so that is where we are. More than likely, I will do the next video will be at some point through free agency before spring training, or maybe just at spring training because I don't know if I'm going to be super active this off season. I think we got our team to being in a pretty decent spot. We might make a couple of kind of smaller trades to kind of try to thin out our 40 man, which doesn't need a ton of thinning, but we do have some people that we have to protect. Like I'm gonna do this before I forget to make sure we protect Moran. Enriquez I'll probably want to protect as well, even though he's likely getting shipped off. Potentially Bentley as well. And if there's pieces that are available that in trade that are 40 that would have to be protected, I want to be able to do that. But yeah, that is the current spot of the team. I think we're in a pretty decent spot. Starting pitching is always going to be something I'm going to be concerned about. But I think that we're in an okay spot. Getting Maeda back for a full year, adding Lamet pushes kind of some people down. Maybe one more that I might look into, but I mean Gray is a question mark with the torn labrum of how he comes back from that. But I mean he was so good last year that I think all of this. I mean it looks like it's pretty similar to where he was before. So, and I believe let's see, well 8:30. When was the injury? Yeah, so that was pre-injury, unfortunately. So we'll have to see kind of how that goes. But yeah, that's the state of the team. I think it's in a pretty good spot. I don't remember if I talked about awards, but Joan Duran did win Reliever of the Year unanimously, and Correa won a Gold Glove, and I believe that was it. So yeah, because he won that. We did not have any Silver Sluggers. Duran was third in Rookie of the Year. Miranda was sixth. Did not win that. Duran was second in the Cy Young, which I think is a little crazy. And Correa was third for MVP. Duran got some votes. Urshela got some votes. And that was that. So that's the state of the team. I think we're in a pretty good spot. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.